What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Mark, and I'm here with my beautiful wife,
Coat Nasa,
and my beautiful hat.
And today we're going to be telling you about. You too much. And today we're going to be talking you through how we built our deck for right around $1,000. So if you haven't seen the last video, go ahead and check it because we showed y'all how we put it all together, but we didn't go in as much detail as we should have. So today's video, we're going to head outside and kind of show y'all, walk y'all through how and what and how it happened.
Yeah,
so.
And I know the thumbnail says $1,000. Technically, it was a little bit more than that for us just because we didn't have all the tools we needed. But if you have all the tools you need and you don't need to rent a truck, or you don't need to rent a wheelbarrow, or you don't need to buy like a ratchet set or some of the other tools that we ended up having to pick up for ourselves, then you can do this for around $1,000. That's lumber, screws, carriage bolts, nails, deck blocks, all the different size lumber, everything we use, that's all around $1,000. And then it was about 150, a little bit more than 150 on different little tools we had to buy that we just didn't happen to have already. We rented a truck twice, once for lumber and once for the stones. And so all of those things came up to an additional like $350. So technically our total cost was $1,344. $43.88. But if you have all that stuff already and just need the lumber and supplies to build it, you can do this for around $1,000.
And another reason why we're doing this video is because we saw so much positive feedback on this one. So in the past, some of our videos have gotten 20, 30,000 views, but we've never seen anything this fast. So we put this video up and then 2-3 days later, we had like 20,000 views, and that's a lot for us. So that like kind of blew our minds. And also in the comments too, a lot of people were asking different questions about how we built it, how much money, what tools we used, what lumber we used. So wanted to make this video to give y'all a little bit more detail on how to do that. So make sure y'all smash the like button if you're finding something useful, or if you're just enjoying the video. Also make sure you subscribe and join our family.
All right, we're gonna head outside. All right, so a lot of people said in the comments that they didn't believe us when we said that we did this with no experience. Honest to God, this was a bunch of YouTube videos and basically just like a bunch of research on the internet. I mean, I helped my dad with the deck when I was around 11, but besides that, after the first night that we talked about it, I probably spent 3 to 4 hours looking at different YouTube videos to kind of get the idea of just like the basics around like structural support. And then each night as we got through another day of the deck, it took us about 7 days, we would look up to see everything we needed to know about the next step for the next day. So that's pretty much how we did it. But I'm down here because I wanted to talk about how it all started with the deck blocks, which are these right here that you see. And these provide basically the foundation of support. Now we could have dug post holes and dug down into the ground and then put some concrete down in, but these are just a lot easier to use. Obviously you can see that you can use them right here on the ground surface, and they're very sturdy. So one of the main things we had to do was just make sure that we got it very level and very flush. So that's why you saw us digging out the grass to make sure that there was no wobble in this from the very beginning. So we would dig it out, put it flat, and then we would step on each corner and just kind of see if it was wiggling or jiggling or anything like that. Your foundation has to be solid, it has to be level, it has to be very sound, because that's really the most important part.
All right, so the next thing we did was go ahead and cut out our 4x4 posts. So we bought 2 4x4 by 10 feet long posts. How we were able to decide how tall we wanted to make the deck was we wanted to make sure that over here we were keeping a little bit the same like our steps were. Our steps before this were about right here, and so we were used to stepping out onto the deck or onto the stairs from before. So we wanted to make sure we kept that same length, so we eyeballed that, and then we took those measurements and kind of went along the house for those posts. And in the front, it was actually a little bit longer than the back because of how our yard is kind of a hill almost. And so how we did our posts were, instead of just kind of taking these 2x8s and putting right in front of this and like sticking the carriage bolts through here, we actually cut out a notch onto them so that instead of the weight of the deck being sitting on the bolts, they were actually sitting on the post here, as you can see. So you can see that cut, we notched it out It just gives it a little bit more structural support.
We actually ran 5-inch carriage bolts through. This is a little bit of a longer side since the notch is allowing the longest side of the frame to sit on the 4x4. And so for these over here on this side, we use the hex bolt. And I believe this is like a 7-inch, 8-inch. But we didn't need that much. We have quite a bit of overhang on the other side. But basically that zips through there, and then these carriage bolts zip through these frame posts. So after the 4x4 post, that's when we really started working on the frame. And you can see here that this is one side of the frame, and then we got the opposite side, and these are 6 foot. The reason we decided to go with 6 foot was because we found these 2x8 boards in 12-foot sections. And so we basically just cut them in half, and then we'll make the outside of the frame 6 foot, and then each joist as we went down, we made that 6 foot as well. And so that's why we say the deck is 20x6, because on the front side, we also use 2x8s, but on the front side, these are 10-foot pieces. So you got this piece that starts here, and then it goes all the way down to here, and that's 10 foot. And then the same thing from that section down to here is 10 foot. Now we did have to get, it's technically a little bit under 20 feet because we did have to cut a little piece off. We were originally going to space our deck blocks 5 feet apart, but you can see right here there's a bit of a smaller gap, and the reason for that is because the center block or the deck block like this one that's on the opposite side, it has to fit in between the 2 wheels. We were running out of space, and so we wanted to get it in between the 2 wheels so the deck was a lot closer to the house and we didn't have a huge gap. That's the only reason that these 2 are closer than 5 foot. And so once we brought those 2 in, the 20 foot was coming a little bit beyond the house. And so we cut that off. And so technically this is probably like 17 or 18 feet. But we started with the original plan of 20. So that's something else to think about. Sometimes you might have to just change your plan slightly, just depending on what kind of troubles or problems you run into.
So after we got the frame all squared away, we came over here and actually marked off 16 inches from that end all the way down here. So I'll show you a little bit. So we've got 16 inches from here to here, and it goes literally down 16 inches all the way until we get down to the end of the deck over here. And the reason why this is so much shorter than 16 inches is actually because, like Marique said earlier, we ended up cutting off a little bit of the deck. So this actually made it a little bit shorter, but that's okay. That just gives you a little bit more support. So once we did that, we were able to then take our joist hangers, like you are gonna see in a little bit how we've worked that out.
So these are the joist hangers that we used in assembling our deck. I know we didn't do the greatest job of explaining it while we were actually building the deck, but these are basically what they are. And they actually have 4 holes here for you to attach them directly to the frame of your deck. And then you have an additional 4 holes here, which allows you to attach the joist to the frame. And so this board is a lot bigger than the ones we use. This is like a 2x10 or 2x12, and we actually only use 2x8. But basically, the way it works is this goes up like this, tack your nail in here, 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 and here. And then that's that picture that you saw where all the joists were lined out. This is kind of what we were doing. We had one on this end and one on the opposite end of the frame, and then that's when you sit your board in and where we attach our screws in. So that's how those all ran out and all ran across, was with these joist hangers. All right, so the stairs are a part of the construction that a lot of people think are really difficult, but it's actually pretty simple. All you're doing is basically attaching deck planks. These are the same planks that we use for the deck up here to these parts, these pieces, which are called stringers. So these actually, it looks like we did a bunch of cuts and all that, which you can do it on your own, but these are actually already pre-cut this way. We bought this from the store as one single piece. So we got one here, then we got one here, and then one on the edge. And so we just put, instead of doing one in the middle, we decided to go with 2 so that it was a little bit more support. But they're called stringers, and you buy them that way. And then all you do is, what we used was a 1x6, I believe, right? 2x6. We use a 2x6 here to basically connect the stringers together. And then we put all 4 together and then ran our deck planks across and just zipped our screws in. So it's a pretty simple construction on the staircase, even though it looks difficult. And then what we used in order to attach the stairs to the deck were these, I think they're called ledger tight bolts. And these are usually used to put a ledger, which is the board that runs along the house when the deck is attached to the house. But we just used them for this application. They worked really well. We zipped like 3 in. It felt really sturdy. But the wife was like, oh, I want to put a few more in. So then we put a few more. So I think we have 6 total, and they're just, like I said, tacked onto there. So pretty simple on the staircase. The construction of the other staircase is very, very similar. The only difference over on this side is that we had to basically come down with 2x4 underneath here that came directly down in order to give us an attachment surface to attach the steps to, just because this sits a little bit lower than our 2x8 here. So pretty simple construction, nothing too crazy about the stairs.
So the final step to complete our deck were the deck planks. Now these are 1x6 planks, and we actually started off buying only 10-foot posts and then 10-foot planks, and then afterwards deciding that we wanted to do something different, and I'll tell you why. So had we bought only 10-foot long planks, we would have had one single seam going right down the middle, and I didn't really want that. And so we went ahead and got 16-foot long pieces so that we can have a little bit more of a pattern. So as you can see, you've got the half seam here, and then you come down over here, you can see that you've got another seam over here as well. So in putting the planks down, we went ahead and laid out our first plank and kind of zipped that down, and then we put the next plank on there to zip that down. But it was very important that as we went along, we went all the way to the end of the deck, and not only like did this half and then try to do that half, because our deck planks actually started to like bend and bow a little bit, so we actually had to like pull and push while the other person was zipping down or screwing down, while the other person was screwing it down to get them to be kind of in a straight line. Originally, we were thinking about doing spacing in between them, just because we thought, okay, this is how much space we want. But one of our neighbors was like, don't do that, because the wood is actually really wet, and when it dries out, the space is actually gonna grow a lot. And so before he shows you this, we butted them up completely next to each other. And they're not even completely dry yet, and you can see the spacing in between the planks right now. And all of those were completely butted up against each other as much as we could put them. And now they're drying out a little bit, so they're spacing out a little bit more. Once it is completely dry, we're gonna go ahead and stain it with a clear coat to protect it against weather. But we really, really like the color of our deck, so we don't really wanna add a stain or anything like that to it. We wanna just have the natural wood color to it. We pre-drilled the holes before we screwed down the screws, because if you don't pre-drill holes, you're more likely to get cracks. I pre-drilled, he screwed them down, and then this was our final product. And then we had a little bit of overhang here and just went ahead and took that circular saw and cut it off all the way to give us our nice clean look. And then if you want to come on top of the deck with me, this was the last thing we did on day 7 before we did the circular, use the circular saw to cut out. We actually had to cut our planks here so that they can fit around our wheels, so that we wouldn't be pushing up on it at all on the wheels. And then we also had to cut off some of the length of the width as well, because it wasn't gonna fit all the way into the house. It was a little bit too thick, so we had to cut about 1/4 of an inch off so that it can slide perfectly into the space. But I really like how it turned out.
All right, so this was probably the hardest part. It was the landscaping part, and it was these rocks down here that we grabbed. Guys, don't underestimate pebbles. I don't care how small the rocks are. Pebbles are extremely heavy. We went to, I think this place called DFW Stone Supply, and we got 1.5 tons. We told the guy we needed 120 square feet of coverage, and the 1.5 tons was way too much. We actually ended up sharing some with our neighbors. We definitely could have went with probably about half this amount of stone, but we got a rental truck for a second time, and then we went and picked all this up. And then you saw on the other video the part where we basically had to use like a 2x4 in order to push it off the truck, because this was extremely heavy. So just take your time with this and understand what you're getting yourself into if you're gonna do stone underneath. We put some weed block down first and then put the stones on top, and we just wanted to do this so that we didn't have to try to mow the lawn underneath. The other thing that we did with these stones is we used some of the remaining stones to basically cut out and do like a little stone path to step on here as you go up onto these stairs. And we also did the weed block underneath, so we just pulled the sod up here and ran our weed block and then put some extra stone here as well, and we got a little bit of extra that we can pull from there if we need to kind of fill this in as we go. The cost of the stone was about $105, so a ton and a half of that stone, I forget the name of it, but native one and a half. Yeah, native 1.5, a ton and a half of that was only $100. So that was crazy, a lot cheaper than we would have expected. So definitely do your research and go to the places that sell like the bulk landscaping supplies and try to stay away from buying a bunch of bags all from like Home Depot or Lowe's. Now for this path over here, we actually did these with stolen rock. No, the landowner here has like some extra supplies that we thought we could use, but actually he needs them. So he was super cool about it, but he's gonna allow us to keep this for now. But we basically got these stones from that area that you saw us grabbing, and really, really nice stones. They came from like an older project somewhere in the past, and so they're basically being reused material. You can see that they're really thick if you look over here at this side. So they're extremely heavy, but basically what we did was we dug out the sod and then we leveled it off as much as possible. So like this stone, for example, we would lay this down and then we would step on the corner, similar to how we did the blocks and talked about the blocks. And then once it felt pretty level and pretty sturdy, we moved on to the next stone. And we pretty much just went as we were going. We kind of chose to do some vertical, some horizontal, just to give it a little bit of a different look. And we wanted to make it as level as possible with the ground, without having to put a bunch of pea gravel underneath of it. But for some of them that were really short, like this one here is a lot thinner than that one, we did put some pea gravel under it just to bring the level up a little bit closer to the rest of them. And then once we had it all in place and all laid out, we came through with our pea gravel and went into all of the different gaps in between the rocks, and turned out pretty good. So our little stone walkway.
So if you enjoyed our build and kind of, you know, how we put it all together, leave us a like. Make sure, if you haven't seen the actual video of us putting it together and the big reveal, make sure you go and check that out. Leave us a like, leave us a comment, whatever questions that we didn't answer that you need answering. And then also don't forget to subscribe, hit that post notification bell button so you know exactly when we upload. We'll see you in the next one. We love you.